2-1.
Hello, welcome to Nerd News Now. This is Mark. I'm with Kyle, with Brainy, with Miss Jim. We got everyone here. Guys, thanks for being on tonight. So, I always say, oh, there's not a whole lot going on, and then someone says, oh, there is a whole lot going on. So let's start with Miss Jen. What's going on, Miss Jen?
Well, in the middle of the day when I went to go pick up my son, my phone started buzzing like crazy because I had it silent. And I was like, something's going on. Because it wasn't like a phone call buzz. It wasn't an email buzz. It was the eBay buzz, which tells me something just got announced. And I just happened to be talking to Kyle at the same time. And I said, Kyle, find out what's going on. Because all of a sudden, Mark Millar's really awesome book Starlight started selling. So it was like, boom, boom, boom. So guess what? It's in development.
Joe Cornish to write and direct Mark Millar's Starlight film adaptation for 20th Century Studios.
That's the 90s book, right? Or the 2000s, or early 2000s, something like that?
Starlight was 2016. But oh my gosh, I just put 2 and 2 together from something I'm not allowed to talk about that I learned last week with this as it relates to the illustrator on this book and another project from another publisher. And everything makes sense now. That thing where, that all the serial killer lines come together in your brain.
Now, so they had already announced this Netflix deal with Millar, so I wonder why this book didn't pop before. I would have figured all of his stuff would have popped when that was announced. Was this because the Jupiter's Legacy trailer came out over the weekend?
It's more of that this is in development as opposed to just being optioned. When Netflix just has the right to all of Millar World stuff. This is supposedly already in development, so they're actually going to produce it now.
Right. This is not for Netflix. This is 20th Century Studios.
Oh,
so this
okay.
is a studio is attached to the project, which means it's actually getting made. Whereas Netflix has just got an overall right of first refusal, first look deal on all the Millar World stuff. So 20th Century could make this, and Netflix could go, meh, and choose not to put it out. Like, I don't think Netflix will, but it's an option.
Correct.
So this is just a story-specific instance. By the way, has anyone seen the trailer for Jupiter's Legacy? Because I have no idea what's going on. People just keep calling it the Boys Light. I don't think that's fair, because I don't think it's going to be anything like that. But I have no idea what's going on, and it took me like 4 days to figure out that the lead guy is Josh Jennings.
I read Jupiter's Legacy, and I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay. One of those. All right.
I wasn't sure what was going on while I was reading it, which is why it's awesome.
Yeah.
You gotta wait until it all kind of comes together and congeals. That's my new thing for when a comic book like ties up all the loose ends and starts to make sense. It's congealing.
Has it been enough years for it to tie in by now? So what, like 5 years now, 6 years?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think they should tie it in by now. Heck, even Walking Dead did.
Well, it has a bunch of series that came after it that tie to it. So you've got Jupiter's Circle. So
yep,
right.
They got material.
But it's funny that they call it the Boys Light because I think it's actually the Boys Better, and I would never say that about a Garth Ennis book because I really, really like Jupiter's Legacy. I think Mark Millar is maybe my favorite writer that isn't named Ed Brubaker or Chip Zdarsky. So, I prefer Jupiter's Legacy to the Boys. That being said, I can see the contrast that people who don't know the source material for either one would draw to it. I think it's a mischaracterization, but I think it's a good kind of, trying to explain to somebody what vanilla ice cream is who's never had ice cream. You could say it's kind of like pudding. Speaking of
What do you-
things that congeal.
What do you guys think is going on? Because we've all of a sudden got now essentially 3 different, very superhero-based properties that are very uber violent, all running at the same time.
I think it's the Deadpool effect. Deadpool being a rated R movie, people didn't expect a superhero movie to do what it did, and other people just decided, hey, let's push the envelope a little bit further and see where it goes. They did that with The Boys. It pushed it, and people, they loved it. Invincible had great ratings, so there, people are starting to see, including Walking Dead. Walking Dead took the comic book genre a little bit in a different style for television. They had no problem zombie killing people and everything. So I think they realized people are okay with all that violence and everything. So as long as the story's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it too is the kind of the culture we're in right now. Like everything is so amped up that even your superhero movies have to be super amped up. Like the world we're living in is a crazy place, and all of a sudden, The Boys doesn't seem so crazy. And it's I think that's got something to do with it too. Is that it's in order to be escapist, you've got to be super, one way or the other. Like if I was watching Smokey and the Bandit 2 today, which is all going to tie together. The thing about Smokey and the Bandit 2 is all of the sudden, this movie that in no way seemed like reality when it came out, I'm pretty sure that's how people get elected these days. This is the one where if they can get the prize from Florida to Texas on time, the person gets to be governor of Texas. And little Enos is there with $200K in his pocket. Like, this is a thing. So
They should do that this week.
Yeah, I think that's probably why it was on TV.
Yeah.
But that's not so crazy. I think you need super ultra violence and things that can't possibly exist in order to feel like, hey, maybe this is a thing that we actually, can escape to.
And it's the same reason why our Sherlock Holmes movies right now have to star Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. I mean, same type of deal, right? Like
I'm here for it.
Yeah. Well, that movie's actually pretty good, but I'm wondering because there's a movie that started this maybe like 9-10 years ago, Super, starring Rainn Wilson. And I wonder if people are going to go back and discover that and find that, look at that with a new eye, because now it's a crazy indie movie and there's other stuff going on in it. But that was like an ultra violent. That was like I called it at the time jokingly, Kick-Ass for Grown-Ups, because it was him and Elliot Page, and it's a crazy movie. And I just wonder if
I love
people
that movie.
back and discover that and go, oh, because it was also like mocking itself in a non-mockish way too, and probably mocking the genre, and probably even more so now, like kind of predicting, what was gonna happen. The same way, like a long time ago, maybe like 18 years ago, there was a movie mocking reality television called Series 7, and then that came out a long time ago, and then you have stuff being written that's big in the movies now, like Hunger Games. So yeah, I think it's just it's some one-upmanship. It's also kind of, we've gauged the audience, we know what they like. Maybe Amazon Prime has a way to figure out how many people tuned out in the last 5 minutes of the Invincible cartoon episode 1, and how many people were like, yeah, more of this. Because if you can survive the last 5 minutes of Invincible episode 1, which is animated, then maybe you're gonna like this other stuff. So I think it's just a constant, let's gauge the morality of society today, and of course, like micro targeting and all that, they're able to do that, big data, all that type of stuff. So it's a little bit unnerving if all their data scientists are going, hey, America really craves blood and violence right now, let's go for it. But I don't know. I just think it's like a one-upping of the genre right now, and at some point, I think that's going to teeter off and tone down a little bit. But you'll probably always have an audience for that, just as you always have an audience for horror, right? Of all different types of genres. So that's probably yeah.
And
Go ahead.
it's not like these things are only playing here; they're playing worldwide. Like
Yes.
The Boys is popular worldwide. So it isn't just us. It isn't just micro targeting or whatever we want to call it. There is something going on in the world right now that is just saying this is what we're into. It's why we're not into Westerns anymore. It's just one of those things. And who knows, maybe we'll be into Westerns again next year. But we're not right this second. And that's, part of it.
And we also have to bear in mind the rest of the world is more open to violence than we are, or at least fictional violence. I mean, when you look at all the Japanese animation that's got people chopping off their heads in the very first scene in time. So, we're more conservative about violence here, at least. So,
I was having a conversation with a comic book writer the other day. And this comic book writer told me that they had to have a conversation with their editor about getting a different VPN because they're writing a book about serial killers and their search history needed to be protected and not actually going out to the world because that would wind them up on some lists.
Right.
And I'm going, you know what? Yeah. And I interviewed John Romita Jr. and we talked about Kick-Ass, and he's talking about how, like, on his artboard, he had like different ways to dye like pictures printed out and pinned to his drawing board. And he would talk to his wife about it. And she'd be like, look, we got to have a rule. Like 2 hours before bed is the last time we could talk about this. Because if you talk about it between those two times, we both have nightmares.
The thing
yeah, I can imagine that.
The thing I'm worried about right now is there's other trends that are out there that are super disturbing. Like the fact that on Netflix, Waterworld is trending. I don't understand it.
The Kevin Costner Waterworld?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I gotta stop watching Jane the Virgin and start watching that.
I am right now. I am only binge watching. I'm only watching one new show right now. I haven't watched any more than the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Haven't watched any more than the first episode of Invincible because there's a world where Mighty Ducks Game Changers exists, and I'm gonna watch that.
I'm on the same boat as you. I haven't watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm just gonna wait till the entire series is out and watch it. I'm assuming it's an 8-parter, so
I'm waiting on Invincible. It's better for my mental health.
Right?
Than spending 8 weeks screaming into cameras about how I hate it. Mm-hmm. I just wait till the end and then only scream once.
Miss Jen, what about you? Are you caught up on Falcon Winter Soldier or no?
All except for the last episode. I thought I'd watched all of them, but obviously I walked in and my son was watching number 4 today, and I didn't recognize it at all. So either I slept through it and didn't realize it, or I didn't watch it. But I do have to say, having not watched 4, but just watching 3, there is a moment that Sebastian Stan should just win all the awards for. It's like he says a line like, "Please don't tell me that I'm wrong about it, because Steve told me this, and if Steve's wrong about that, he could be wrong about me." And he has this moment where he says the word "me" too, and it just like breaks me.
Yeah.
Such a good actor, dadgummit.
There's without going into spoilers, there's just so much stuff to unpack in that show. The first episode, I was like, okay, because it's dramatically different than WandaVision. And the second episode, you can kind of see where it's going. And then there was a 1-hour meme created from the third episode. And also like an amazing, MCU appearance. And then 4 is just on another stratosphere. So I'm the only one caught up. I'm not going to go any more than that. But once Rain and Kyle, once you watch it, just remember episode 4 is kind of where it gets good or real or whatever we're going to call it. But yeah.
So Jen inspired me to look something up. The top 10 Netflix shows in America today. Netflix things in America.
Now, is
Thunder
this
Force.
like ratings based or?
This is Netflix's top 10.
Okay.
This is what they call their top 10.
Further, you said Thunder Force is number 1.
Yes.
It is.
Oh my God! Wow, really? I read the little, the little description they have tells you. I'm like, is this what we've come down to now? That we're making shows like this?
So Mark is about the only person who will appreciate this. I said that Thunder Force should be the name of Nia Jax's tag team in WWE.
Yeah.
I think that's a great name for them. But anyhow, so it's This Is a Robbery, which if you haven't seen it is fantastic. Who Killed Sarah, which I haven't watched yet, but I've heard is good. The original not the original, but from what is that? Not the 1994 Little Rascals is number 4.
To me, that's more confusing than Waterworld.
The Serpent, which stars someone who looks vaguely like John Stamos, but isn't. The Sniper Ghost Shooter.
Okay.
Is it Coco Melon? Coco Melon? It's a children's animated show.
Yeah.
Legally Blonde.
Mm.
What Lies Below, which is a new Mina Suvari flick. And Concrete Cowboy, which should always be number 1 because Idris Elba. We lost Mark.
Man, I think Legally Blonde bumped Waterworld today.
That's a good trade-off, I guess.
Bend and snap.
That's right.
I personally did not dislike Waterworld, so I'm okay with that. But Legally Blonde,
I didn't dislike it either. But I also didn't dislike Legally Blonde, so there's that.
I thought Legally Blonde was a really good movie.
Yeah.
For what it was.
Yeah.
I watched it yesterday, and it does hold up really well. It does feel just as
which
good.
One?
The first one.
Legally Blonde?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yep. My daughter loves it. She loves everything Legally Blonde. When she was younger, she wanted to go to Harvard because of Legally Blonde.
I want to see the musical.
I think she's watched it.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure she's watched it already. Us theater people, we like that stuff.
I wonder how many chihuahuas were sold.
Right. I'm sure there's a stat out there that I can find. What else we got going?
How many?
Well, see, no one's caught up on any of the shows. But I never know how much spoilers I want to give about the Marvel stuff on Disney Plus anyway, so that's fine. Box office. Well, Miss Jen wasn't here last week, so let me give her a moment to tell me her thoughts on Godzilla versus Kong.
It is exactly what I wanted, which was, big creatures bashing each other. But, Kyle and I have had these long discussions about there's some real problems in their, everything relies on something else in the movie to further the storyline. So it's one big MacGuffin, which is fun to watch, but you're just thinking if any one of these things doesn't exist, the movie is really not going to happen.
Right.
I still haven't watched it yet, but do they get political in this one?
No, except for to say that, human beings think they're all that and maybe they're not.
Yeah. That could be the story of every single movie we've ever watched.
Yeah.
But there was such great, the special effects stuff is just... Now, I don't even think about the fact that you used to watch Godzilla and King Kong and have to see it in glorious stop motion, Harryhausen stuff. And we, when they watched it back then, they thought that was miraculous looking. And now it's just this looks so stinking real.
Well, technology has come far, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, last week I compared that with the Michael Bay Transformers, where it just looks like a tornado of toasters and iPods fighting each other. And, like the action when Godzilla and Kong are fighting is just, they're completely, it's distinguishable. You know exactly what's going on. It just looks like so clear. That's the thing about that. But no spoilers, Michigan, for people who haven't seen it yet. But that one thing that I said was going to happen did, and the one thing I said that wasn't didn't. So I was right about it. But I did watch it and I enjoyed it. So
A public service announcement for all our viewers: do not Google Chihuahua facts after Legally Blonde. It will make you sad.
oh no,
There are a lot of stories about how the dog from Legally Blonde died and how Reese Witherspoon had adopted a dog, and then all these things about Chihuahuas and dog shelters, and then things about how people had went out and bought and adopted Chihuahuas after the movie, but they weren't cute little Chihuahuas like in the movie, and they were actually mean because Chihuahuas usually are mean, and how they had to take them to shelter. There was it's awful. Don't do it.
Yep.
yeah.
Research the breed before you buy one, so you can know what you're in for and be patient with them.
Yeah, and also don't base the breed that you want based on a dog that is trained for 12 hours a day by a Hollywood, animal trainers.
Right. If you adopt a pet based on a movie, you should adopt the bear from the third Dr. Dolittle film. Or
Yeah.
from Without a Paddle.
Hey, or Yogi Bear. I want to adopt Yogi.
Hey, boo boo. That's
Don't-
my dream job, right? Is to voice Yogi Bear.
Really? Do something.
If I could get, well, I don't have a whole lot of vocabulary. That's why I'll never get the job. But it's hey boo boo. How about a picnic basket?
It's good. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else do voices? I know I can't do it, but I can do
After
anything.
a minute, my Yogi Bear turns into Snagglepuss.
No, I can't. No, I can't do. I wish I could do voice work. Voice work would be awesome, especially in Texas. There's a couple companies, and you can make a living off of it. But no, I never know.
When I used to do stand up, I did a very dirty bit about Bernie Sanders and Ted Kennedy and coming up with free tuition for everyone. But it was very dirty, and the origin of the story is unrepeatable outside of that setting. But I did it in the voices, and I think that made it funnier than the joke actually ever was.
I mean, sometimes it's all about the delivery, right, and not the product. So
Absolutely.
that
Speaking of all about the delivery and not the product, Mark, did you watch WrestleMania?
Oh no!
Are we doing this now, or are we going to let them go, or what?
No, I just had to make the joke. You set it up. I had to make the joke.
I did. I did watch. Yeah, I did. Are we doing this now? Are we going for it?
No, we'll talk about it at the end.
Okay. Yeah, it was a thing that happened for sure.
It did, in fact. It almost didn't, but then it did, in fact, happen.
Yeah, I didn't quite. Oh, yeah. I didn't understand. I didn't know that a WrestleMania could rain out or whatever, or be in a rain delay.
How did I not see this news? Shazam casts Lucy Liu as Calypso.
Oh yeah, so I actually have that as one of the two things I was able to prepare. I was gonna ask. We were talking about comic book speculation and the Mark Millar book, shooting up in price. So Lucy Liu was cast as Calypso. Now I really don't know how I missed this. The news was sort of like posthumously paired with the fact that Helen Mirren had already been cast as Aspera. So, Aspera and Calypso are sisters. So that's going to be awesome. That's great casting right there. So that's in Shazam Fury of the Gods.
I like it.
Yeah, that's going to be Now, the thing with Shazam characters is those comics are already really expensive, right? So I'm sure, like, the first appearance of Calypso and Aspera are already tough as it is. That's the same thing about some of the speculative market in comics right now. But then you have stuff like Daredevil 9 is all of a sudden $300 because Echo's going to be in Hawkeye. So when the heck did that happen?
Echo is also a different thing. Can
Oh,
I
okay.
spoil last week's comics or no?
Oh, Echo's something else. Oh, yeah. You can.
Just
Well,
say
for me,
spoiler alert, and then people can motor away if they don't want to know about that one book, I guess.
Right.
sure. Incoming.
Do you wanna tell people? Because Jen was the person who sort of told me, and then I did some research. And I'm like, oh my god,
Which was
Alright.
the thing.
that Echo is involved with the Phoenix Force.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's a new host, huh? Because I heard that Phoenix Force found a new host. So I guess Echo is it.
It's so funny because, the whole series leading up to it, you're just like going, oh, who is it going to end up? Because, it's like the people in play are super powerful people, right? Black Panther and Captain America and, people that you're like, okay, well, this makes sense. And then the person that ends up with a power makes the most sense because it's like, it feels like it's a Thunderbird, right? Why not?
Yeah, there was a spoiler cover.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
It's
is
hard.
that what comic was that? Did that happen in?
Avengers 44.
44.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Yeah, I imagine that her first appearance in Marvel Knights #9 was probably like $10 a month ago. But I don't really know what's happened to the secondary comic market right now because it's like if you don't get a jump on it, these books that you could have for $5 last month are like $200 all of a sudden. It's similar to what's going on in the trading card market, which I'm very well aware of. But it's like, are people? Oh, all of you can answer this question. Are people just like paying 10 to 20 to 30 times the amount for raw books right now over CGC stuff because no one wants to wait for turnaround times or what's going on there?
Probably, but I think it's just becoming way too speculative. People are just some people just have a little bit too much money and they're just driving it up, just hoping that they can turn it around before it collapses. I honestly don't see the. I felt this way about the stock market back in the late '90s, and still to this day, I think it's just overly inflated, and I think that's what's happening with comic books and sports cards right now, and
Yeah.
Pokemon as well. I think it's all false inflation. It's going to get to the point where it's just ridiculously, and people are just going to stop and it's going to crash. I hope it doesn't because I like seeing demand for this stuff. The speculators actually bring in other people. Even the readers starting to, hey, you know what, this is going high. Maybe I should just read it. So they do. It does drive people in to try to get the books that they may not have. But at the same time, somebody's going to lose out on this. Somebody, I don't know who. It's usually the bottom feeders that lose out.
Yeah. And there's a whole nother aspect which we haven't even talked about. Well, it hadn't come up yet really in the comic industry, but NFTs could play a role with certain artists coming up because it's insanity, right? Like it's crazy.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, unlike most people, didn't care for NFTs, but I was making a trade with some of the booster boxes of a product I had with this guy, and he wanted to get more, and I'm like, look, and he goes, hey, I have some NFTs. I'm like, what am I going to do with NFTs? I can't do anything with it. To make the long story short, I ended up getting 5 NFTs from him in exchange for 5 booster boxes. I don't know where the market is going to go on that. I have no idea what it is. I don't know, how far it's going to go. But I'm like, hey, let's get our feet wet. But that's for me. I'm looking at it from the perspective of if I lose, even if I don't sell it for $1, at least I can say I owned one, right?
Yeah, but it's everything is out of hand right now. So we'll see once the dust settles. But I mean, you have like cereals being not on the shelf because they got Pokemon cards in them. You know, people buying out, you know, entire boxes and back alleys from McDonald's because it's got Pokemon cards in them. And then like an example that happened last week was the news of Owen Wilson and the whole like Time Squad aspect to Loki had been out for 6 months already, but then like a new trailer shows, and then the value of the first appearance of those characters like went up 300% an hour after that video was on YouTube. And
Right.
so it's like I don't know if it's just like people that they're last to get comic news or what, but it's just like one you get a couple of like sold items on eBay to comp it to, and then it just goes to the moon. So
There's
It's just
stuff
really
like that I feel like that I was kind of silly about, that if I, you know, it's hard to know when the top for things are anymore. Because like
oh
even
yeah.
Invincible, you know, when we found out that Invincible was going to be made, that was like a year or something ago. We could have gone and bought all of the first appearances we wanted to for like a really reasonable price. But now, forget that mess.
By the
Yeah,
way,
trying to figure out what's happening with the collectibles market right now is Brainy. Is just it's a loser's errand. You know, trying to figure that out right now. It doesn't work. I collect things that nobody else wants anymore, which is kind of my favorite thing. I
You
just
guys see
bought a
that one?
mountain of Time magazines from Miss Jen.
I do see that.
that is
That's
an
cool.
NFT that got me to say, all right, you know what? I'll take them. It's a Batman
Now,
figure.
can you animate that and put it in your mix?
Ooh.
Oh,
Ooh.
Have him dance? I
I
would like to see Batman twerk, please.
You figure out how. I guess I could animate it. It'll take me a few years to freaking get every single. But basically, that was an NFT that got me to like, you know what? Sure, why not? I'll take them. So I got that, and I'm like, okay, Jay Lee's one of my favorite artists, so I have to get that one.
Is loading. Is loading. Is loaded.
So that's a Jay Lee figure. Anyway.
You can now buy WWE NFTs.
Yeah.
As if you need to give the McMahons more money.
Yeah. Although I am curious how much the Undertaker throwing Mankind off of Hell in the Cell goes for. That would be the one where
$1 trillion. Like they haven't invented an amount of money enough.
Yeah.
For that.
I mean, I think that's probably like the moment, right? I mean, I would think so. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So when you buy NFT, you only own that data file, right? You can't use it to monetize for any reason other than just transferring the file again.
Correct. Well, I mean, it depends if somebody actually makes a market for it. I mean, that's basically what Bitcoin is. It's just a data file.
Mm-hmm.
But in Bitcoin's case, you can actually own parts of it. And I guess in an NFT, you can do the same thing. It's just an image. In this case, it's just an image associated with that one chain, that block of that chain. So basically, you own it. I mean, technically, I guess you can change the image as well if you really want to. I have to find out about that.
I know, Parker.
I still have no idea what they are. I know non-fungible tokens, and that's it. It's just crazy, and everything is like, you know, this is worth that, and this is worth that, and this is worth that, but nothing is anything till the cash is either in your hand or you paid your mortgage off with it, right? So, I mean, and that's where it's hard on all this stuff because you don't know what the ceiling or the floor is going to be with any of it. And then everyone's just like, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? I mean, the demand is just insane.
Think of it this way. When was the last time you actually used cash over a credit card?
Well,
yesterday.
I'm asked because probably, I don't know, 5 years ago.
See, I don't even see my paycheck anymore. It goes straight from one computer to another computer, and then from there it goes to. In theory,
I refuse to use credit card to buy French fries, so I keep cash on hand.
Yeah, I just use the app.
the line.
I use the fast food apps.
But if I don't have, so that's how I keep myself from always eating French fries and fast food and junk. Is if I don't have the cash on hand, I can't go to the fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
It's the thing that's keeping me from being 2,000 pounds. Like, you know, it's this is the line I draw in the sand. You know, but that's all I use cash for is, you know, eating food. But you're right. I mean, the thing about NFTs and Bitcoin and all of these cryptocurrencies is that nobody knows enough about them yet to really be able to say, oh, this investment is strong, or this investment is smart. It's just ride the wave.
I think it's more of we haven't figured out how to use it yet. We haven't figured out how to make a proper purchase because it's not widely available for everybody. Only the tech geeks that know how to use it are the ones using it. The general public does not know how to spend it yet. So once they figure out how to spend it, PayPal's allowing you to buy and sell Bitcoin, and pretty soon it's going to become, hey, instead of look at it from the perspective from PayPal, it doesn't care whether it's cash or Bitcoin. It's still the same transaction for them. It's just numbers passing from one side to the other. That's it. And from looking at it from that angle, it is just currency. I mean, at least Bitcoin is just currency. It's just the way we utilize it. And I don't think we've determined that yet.
I think that using Bitcoin on PayPal negates the reason why you have Bitcoin, though, because now you have to pay a percentage of your Bitcoin, which is what we're trying to prevent by having the Bitcoin.
Exactly, right? Remember, the dollar used to be backed by gold. There's no way we've got the amount of gold required to, back up the trillions of dollars. It's all just generated numbers,
Okay. Do you want history lessons with Kyle, or should we move on to funnier news?
Let's go to funnier news.
Okay. I can just tell you that the gold standard went away in the 1950s. The silver standard went away in the 1970s. And now it's the rare metal standard, which also includes every piece that's in your cell phone. Yes. All right. Funny story. Ron Funches is trying to get the voiceover changed for the Suicide Squad movie because Stallone is hanging out at Mar-a-Lago. And the hashtag replace Stallone with Funches is trending. Ron Funches is the voice of King Shark in the Harley Quinn animated series. And he's awesome. And someone put, I support this not just for Suicide Squad, but for all of his movies retroactively. So now I'm hearing Ron Funches' voice say, Adrian, I did it. That's funny news because imagine Sylvester Stallone, going, oh, yo, I'm gonna, we're gonna kill these guys, Dolph Lundgren. And now it's, hey, Dolph Lundgren, you want to smoke some weed? It's a funny, political stuff aside, the idea of changing the voice of King Shark is always hysterical.
But if anyone saw that cartoon, why would you ever want to use another voice for King Shark? That's what I don't get.
Right.
You should have an A reel and a B reel. And when you go watch Suicide Squad in the movie theaters, you don't know which one you're going to get. So then you're going to have to watch it multiple times.
The DVD comes out it comes out on streaming and you've got different, French, English, Funches.
Or just put in your earbuds and select, option 1 or option 2.
Yeah.
Just
I'm all about it.
Track at that point. I'd be fine with that.
Mm-hmm. I'm all about it.
Look at this horning.
But no, and whenever the Suicide Squad video game footage came out, which looks potentially awesome, he wasn't voicing that King Shark either. And I'm like, what? I don't understand. Like, if anyone's seen the Harley Quinn cartoon, it's awesome. So I want everything else to be like that. So yeah, I'm fine with Ron Funches being in whatever. So,
Did you guys see that the Nevers beat Game of Thrones for an HBO original series debut?
Wow.
More people watched it than watched Game of Thrones.
now is that Game of Thrones like series finale or the
No,
the
debut.
premiere?
Debut. I mean, it sounds way better than it probably actually is.
Yeah.
But I just love how HBO's like, hey, this thing's great. You should watch it. Better than Game of Thrones first episode. I'm like, have you ever watched a pilot in your life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Game of Thrones pilot does hold up, though. I will say that.
It doesn't hurt the fact that they released it during the middle of a pandemic where everybody's just clamoring to find something to watch.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I just think viewership is at an all-time high. So of anything.
And then the actual funny story I wanted to move to is y'all, LeVar Burton is working really hard to be the host of Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Like, he is politicking super hard.
I'm down for
And
it.
I want it more than I've ever wanted anything in my life.
Yes. My vote is yes for sure on that.
Yeah.
I've actually enjoyed all of the hosts that they've had. Maybe this quarterback guy who's on right now, he's a little dry.
I was going to ask you, but does that include Aaron Rodgers? I wasn't going to bring it up, but now I just did. So.
Well, did you see that Dr. Oz's episodes got the lowest ratings since, Trebek passed away?
Aww.
Dr. Oz. But everybody else is kind of rebounded.
Where does Dr. Oz have to do with Jeopardy?
He was a guest host.
Oh.
So, by the way, future hosts that are coming, that one of them has a lot of potential for me. I don't think it'll ever be LeVar Burton potential, but Anderson Cooper could do a hell of a job as the Jeopardy host.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Also, Mayim Bialik.
Yeah.
She would be good.
But Ken Jennings is already on 3 other game shows, so he's out. Plus, he's busy losing to me online at trivia all the time. He's not good at online trivia. Katie Couric, he doesn't know music. Katie Couric and Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers, who he went to an Ivy League school, but that doesn't mean he should host Jeopardy. I have strong feelings about Jeopardy hosting duties.
Yeah, Burton,
Anderson Cooper.
He did raise the bar really high. So yeah,
there's a video going around. This is my favorite thing about Alex Trebek ever. There's a video going around where a woman is on a tour of the Jeopardy studios and she gets to meet Alex Trebek and she goes, "Sir, would you mind if I ask a question about you when you were a young student in Toronto?" And he goes, "Sure." She goes, "Did you actually live in the basement of this family?" And she gives the family name and he goes, "Not only did I live in the basement, but I dated the daughter so-and-so." And she goes, "That's my aunt. We all thought my dad was full of crap when he said you lived in his basement when he was a kid. And now you're telling me you could have been my uncle?" And he goes, "Yeah, I could." I'm going, best video ever.
It's weird, but I think my favorite of the guest hosts so far has still been that executive producer. I thought it was awesome.
The
I forgot about
very good. Jeopardy?
Yeah. He did the first couple of weeks right after Alex passed.
Yeah, but I as an executive producer of things,
the
amount of time you have to do other things is very small.
Yeah, I understand this.
You could maybe work on Jeopardy because they have such a phenomenal writing staff, but I've also gone through the Jeopardy casting process, and they need their executive producers casting. So, I passed the test twice, but I don't pass the camera test most times. I've never passed the camera test. So you do a general knowledge test, then you do a with buzzers test, and then you get to a camera test where you've got to play with cameras on you, and that's where I always get nervous and foul up.
can't believe it. You're such a natural all the time when I see you.
Well, but you got to look into the camera, listen to the question, and press the button. And my brain can only do two things at once.
Yeah, I'm all for LeVar Burton getting this, so we'll see what happens.
So we've been at this 52 minutes mark. Should we bore everyone with wrestling now?
Yeah, I'm gonna give any. Does anyone have any words to get in about comics this week? Rainey or Miss Jen? Speak now or forever hold your comics.
The one I'm interested in, I actually interviewed the writer creator today, is Duplicant.
Okay.
Basically about a fellow who creates a way to make new replacement body parts when there's a pandemic which destroys, important bodily organs. And he makes them like 3D printing them. And then it gets away from them and becomes kind of like a thing they hold over people. Like people are so far in debt to pay for their organs that they basically come in indentured servants. And he kind of like through his interaction with the main character kind of realizes what the problem is. So it's so funny because it started as, it was written as a pilot and then became a comic.
I had one this week for me that was interesting called where's it at? You Promised Me Darkness. But now I'm not seeing it. Maybe that's nope. I'm not seeing it for whatever reason, but it's about the people. Oh, there it is. You Promised Me Darkness from Behemoth. It's about the people who believe that Halley's Comet is going to bring about the end of the world. But it's also about people who are born in the shadow of Halley's Comet with special abilities.
Mm-hmm. That's portentous.
Anything else? And does anyone want to tag out of this episode before we start WrestleMania talk?
I usually tag out at 7:30, but my next meeting they actually postponed it till 8. So now I'm curious to see what you guys have to say about WrestleMania.
Okay.
Did you happen to watch it, Brainy, or are you just like down?
Dude, the last WrestleMania I watched was probably like 7 or 8. What are they on, like 10 million?
37.
Yeah, so I have not watched WrestleMania in probably over 30, over 25 at least. I may have watched 11. I don't know. But it's been years. It's been many years. So.
Miss Jen,
all right.
WrestleManias have you seen?
Oh my gosh. I think my last like real serious wrestling I watched when I was in high school. So 1988.
So WrestleMania 3?
I guess so.
Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
Around the world, yeah.
This is my
From
dude.
the Pontiac Silverdome right up the street.
So Kyle, I'll let you take the lead on this, but I will say that right off the bat, I was very frustrated with the whole it being exclusively on Peacock because I thought the WWE app had done a good job of allowing you to watch the pay-per-views fairly seamlessly from the point you wanted to. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like me being hindered by my Xfinity Comcast cable box or just, a glitch in the matrix or whatever, but I was basically restricted to watching it live. So
Yep. Peacock's live software does not allow for scrubbing at the moment. It was addressed after night 1 by Peacock and WWE as something they hadn't planned for. And it was just something that needed to be turned on, apparently. Well, it was something that I think WWE assumed it was going to happen, and Peacock assumed if you're watching it, you want to watch it live, you don't want to go back. And so it's like probably a button or something that needs checked. But I started watching at the beginning of the pre-show, and I ended when it went off the air. So, with the exception of night 2, I ended a little early on night 2, but we can talk about that.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I would assume night 2 would have been worth anything, and it wasn't. So you shouldn't make assumptions with WrestleMania.
No, night 2 was a dumpster fire at twice the price. I at one point texted a friend of mine and said, "This is a dumpster fire, and not even a good dumpster fire. One where the dumpster is full of rotting diapers and corpses." So,
God.
um,
Tell us how you feel,
if
Kyle.
you want to break it down match by match, it started off bad, got worse, got better for a minute, and then ended worse, and then ended worse, and then got worse the whole night.
And it was almost as if, and I told you about, my experience with trying to catch up in the last year in the pandemic, just it being something to escape into. But now I try to tune into Raw and SmackDown on Mondays and Fridays, respectively. Keep up with the storylines. It seemed on night 2, they just threw all storylines out the window.
Well,
Certain characters that have been around didn't show up, and it was just all kinds of weirdness.
Well, so night 2 did have a lot of the finalization of story arcs, but not really the finalization of story arcs. So the first match out of the gate is the Fiend Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton, which you think this is going to be the end. You think the Fiend's going to come out and squash Randy Orton, and it's going to be the end of this thing. The Fiend rises from the ashes, a la The Undertaker, and just does his thing. But then they do this thing, which, by the way, Alexa Bliss with the weird stuff running down her face is as hot as Alexa Bliss has ever looked. Just throwing that out there. 90s scene girl Alexa Bliss is apparently my style. But I thought that match should have ended the other way, and it would have been a pretty good match. It didn't go long enough, I don't think, and it should have gone the other direction, and it would have been a decent match. As it was, I think it was odd and boring.
I kept thinking this entire time, being the last 2 or 3 months, that Randy Orton was going to become the Fiend, or Fiend-like, and then the stable of him, Bray Wyatt, and Alexa Bliss would have been awesome going forward.
I could have gotten behind that. That would have been a great mixed tag.
Someone had mentioned online, either do something like that or just get rid of Randy Orton and drop him in the giant Jack-in-the-Box and then have Flames shoot out and be done with all this. But they never are done with anything, just in the same way the whole graveyard match from last year with AJ Styles were like, he's buried, and then now he's back, and he's got some guy with him, and then he wins tag team titles he doesn't deserve, and blah, blah, blah. But that was night 1.
We'll get to night 1.
Yeah, so...
the other match is Nia Jax versus Shayna Baszler. I said some terrible things about Nia Jax, but she's a terrible wrestler, so we'll move on.
Well,
Tamina
also,
Snuka should have won.
And the one complaint I had, the one thing I'll say about that is that they built up this whole Reggie thing for weeks, if not months, and then he was a no-show at WrestleMania, so I don't understand what happened there.
Right. Kevin Owens versus Q Zane, which is actually my favorite match. For those of you who don't know, Sami Zayn is doing a whole QAnon angle where he thinks everything's a big conspiracy against him. And the reason it was my favorite match is because at the end, Logan Paul took a stunner and made me very happy.
I was disappointed in that one because I had been hearing since WrestleMania 36 that Owens was planning a spot off the pirate ship, and no one touched that pirate ship.
Because the pirate ship was CGI.
But I'm talking about the one that's actually in, that's affixed to the Buccaneers.
I think the weather had something to do with some of that.
Probably. It just seemed like, I know that last year was shifted around the pandemic, but like the Funhouse match from last year, for me, I'm not talking about for, someone who's been into wrestling for 30 years and is like a traditionalist by any means, but like that Funhouse match with The Fiend versus John Cena was incredible. Right? So You know, I was hoping for like
Yeah.
something inventive like that, but there was like nothing. It was all in ring. They didn't even have like any backstage brawls or anything in this whole
Like I said,
WrestleMania.
I think part of it is the weather, and I think part of it is this is the first time they were back in front of fans. And on night one, when you saw that, you saw some people come out a little over amped. And when you try and do backstage gimmicks, you try and do weird spots like that, and you're too heavy, too high, that's when people get hurt. Like I don't know if you remember back when Big Cass and the little Italian guy. Enzo and Big Cass were a gimmick. Their first WrestleMania, they came out and Enzo basically strangled himself on the ring ropes, trying to run around the ring like a crazy person. And he slipped and fell and like got his neck caught around the ring ropes and then couldn't do promos because he had hurt himself.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that happens. So if you cut a lot of that out and it was raining all weekend, if you're going to do an event in an outdoor stadium in Florida, maybe don't because rain.
Yeah.
Just as a thought. But so Riddle versus Sheamus, I'm glad the way that one came out because the second I saw Riddle, I wanted someone to hurt him a la Goldberg, like really hurt him, like as a shoot, not like, which I guess is what makes him a good heel.
Wait, I thought Riddle's a face.
I think in that match he's a heel because Sheamus has been so over for so long.
Right.
I think in other matches he's a face, but in that match he's a heel compared to Sheamus. And then the Nigerian drum fight, Big E versus Apollo Crews. No.
No, and they also made a major mess up. I don't know who's responsible for this. I would assume that the announcers are briefed on what's going to happen or whatever, but the Michael Cole was acting like he'd never seen this person before in their life, but that guy wasn't he drafted to SmackDown like a year ago or something? Like,
yeah, but he's not been used for anything ever.
Okay.
And Michael Cole is not known for being a good announcer. But the thing about this match is I thought it was great. It was brutal. It was angry. And then all of a sudden, hey, here's a giant to squash somebody. Really? He couldn't give us an honest end of the match.
Yeah.
You know, the Raw Women's Championship, Asuka versus Rhea Ripley. I am glad of the way that went. Rhea Ripley, I think, has a bigger upside at the moment than Asuka does.
Yeah.
I think Asuka needs to get back to the crazy person Asuka gimmick that is what made her famous all around the world. But I also think I'm in love with Rhea Ripley. Again, something about punk rock scene girls. And then the Universal Championship match, which was the last match of night 2, Roman Reigns versus Edge versus Daniel Bryan. Roman Reigns was the champion. He walked away the champion after a really non-finish, a really disappointing finish. It was a great match until the end.
How long has this head of the table storyline been going on?
Since he came back from his bout with cancer, which, like, okay, this is going to sound like me saying I don't want a guy who just beat cancer to be a WWE title holder. I'm not saying that. I'm tired of WWE trying to make Roman Reigns look strong. Like, it would have been a much better feud for Edge to pin Daniel Bryan, get the strap, and now Edge, who has this 30-year history with the company, and he's got his own great comeback story from a broken neck and Canadian soap operas to being back in the WWE, and now he's in a feud with a legacy. Like, the guy's The Rock's cousin, and his great-grandfather was, the same. He's got the same lineage as The Rock. And he's got his cousins in the Usos, and Nia Jax is his real-life cousin, and all this kind of stuff. Like, he can have this big kind of story against Edge, who can put anybody over at any time. And instead, they're just like, he gets to keep the belt. Let's make him look strong.
I keep expecting at some point for Jey Uso to do a heel turn, which would be a face turn because Roman Reigns is a heel, but it's just not, like, they're not moving the needle at all. Like, this is just still, like, nothing happened to move that storyline. It's just like they built it up with Edge constantly telling Uso like, you can do better, you can be better. That guy's like shouldn't control you, you know. And I would have thought a good way to would in that match would be that Jey Uso comes out to help like he did, but then maybe he pins Roman Reigns and walks away with the belt because there's no rules, so who cares?
Yeah. No, that's
Then
fair.
you have like this epic, like, what the heck happened? What on earth is going on? My brain just exploded. If I was ever actually buying this storyline at all, and then you could see like Paul Heyman's reaction, and then you could like really set up some actual like storylines moving forward in SmackDown. But now it's just like, is it just going to be like Daniel Bryan and Edge complaining for another 4 months? Like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, they're not like. Is anyone actually retiring, or are we just going to keep doing this all the way through SummerSlam and all that?
Right. I will say this. The only thing that was great about that match was Paul Heyman's face acting, which needs to get inducted into the Hall of Fame on its own.
Yeah.
That man could tell a story with just his eyebrows like no one I've ever seen.
And it's weird to me that he doesn't interfere. I've never seen a member of a stable just never interfere. But, you know, if you're comparing him to someone like Jimmy Hart or something that, you know, it's a non-starter, right? But he just stands there. Okay.
He used to until CM Punk legit kicked him in the throat.
Oh. And then CM Punk quit and started writing Thor comics, right? So.
Yeah, and he's still wrestling dark matches, but nobody's supposed to know that. But no, like 15 or like 10 years ago, like he interfered in a ECW match with CM Punk, and CM Punk was supposed to win. Like, it was written that he would win, and it caused him to lose, and CM Punk legit kicked the dude in the throat.
Yeah.
So, you know, message is go with the script, dummy. But night one, I think, was the better night. First match was Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre. The right guy won. Bobby Lashley needs to get off the steroids. You know, but I think this sets up a good long run between Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, because those are two guys who can really work well together. Bobby Lashley getting to keep the strap is all right in that because now at SummerSlam you pay it off. You give him 2 months to feud. And then Bobby Lashley can go away and go off the steroids for a few months and let his head get back to normal size. And the weird veins that happen and ugh. But I do like that Bobby Lashley is basically working Chris Masters' gimmick from 2006.
Yeah.
You know, put a guy in a full Nelson until they pass out. The Women's Tag Team Championship #1 contenders match, I didn't watch as much as I should have, because apparently it was like amateur porn. It rained Saturday night, and so everyone was soaked because Vince McMahon made them all come out in their ring attire and wave to the crowd in the rain. And as a result, several of the women in the women's match had wardrobe malfunctions. And WWE kept having to black out the screen because they don't have any blurring. They just go black.
Right.
So, you know, it was an awkward match from everything I've read, and it didn't go well. But Natalya and Tamina Snuka won, and then they got squashed by Nia Jax, both literally and figuratively. Cesaro versus Seth Rollins was phenomenal. And the only thing I'm going to say about this match was Cesaro's finishing move is the windmill, right? But he calls it, they call it the UFO when he goes a long time. He held Rollins by his ankles and spun him 23 times in complete circles without stopping.
Yeah, and not only that, but he spun him twice that match, right? Once was maybe like 11 times, and you could see like it might have been like a false hit or whatever, but then he also did a move where he put him on his shoulders and like without hands would like kind of like clap his hands and just show off his strength. But I was on all three of those spinning moves. It's like, I don't know how you don't get dizzy. So just that, being able to be completely cognizant of where you are in the ring, not get dizzy, and then still make the tag and finish the match and all that. really impressive stuff. And I know that. Yeah, go ahead.
It's a dancer's technique. I think he's getting his spots and he's staring at 2 or 3 spots to do it, and it's incredible. But my favorite story is that when Cesaro first signed with WWE, one of the bookers showed another booker video of him doing that move in the Indies.
Oh,
and
okay.
the second booker, who had been at WWE for eons, went up and goes, "Why don't you do that all the time?" And Cesaro goes, "I'm saving it to win a match at WrestleMania one day." And then he did it and won a match at WrestleMania after losing at 8 WrestleManias. So,
Right.
great match. The New Day versus AJ Styles and Omos. Kofi Kingston's hair looked like curly fries, which made me hungry. Also, this match should have ended way better, and it kind of sucked. But overall, as a tag team goes, where one of the guys is going to come in and literally squash the other guys, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Up until that point, it was great.
And I've learned that they call that a hot tag match, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you basically have one guy kind of waiting around the entire time, clapping his hands, letting the other guy get the crap kicked out of him, and then at some point just come in and obliterate people, which is what I thought was going to happen in the Bad Bunny match. So I don't know if I'm going in order, but if you want to talk about that one for a second.
Bad Bunny is next. Bad Bunny is the great. Well, no, Bad Bunny is not next. There's 2 matches. There's one match.
All right.
The match in between them is Shane McMahon versus Braun Strowman, or Braun Strowman, depending on how you see it. But Braun Strowman, for those of you who don't know, before he was a professional wrestler, was a power lifter. And when I knew him as a power lifter, I watched him literally rip a tree out of the ground. No, it wasn't like a giant oak tree. It was a sapling kind of tree, but he still, it had roots and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he just ripped it out of the ground. The man is that strong. In a steel cage match, which was awesome. The fact that he got attacked before the match was predictable. The fact that it didn't affect him, and at one point he literally ripped a steel cage apart with his bare hands, is what happens when you make a cage out of tinfoil. However, some of the high-flying spots and literally throwing around of a man in his mid-60s in Shane McMahon was incredibly entertaining. And the fact that no one died is always a good thing.
Have you ever seen that bit where someone rips through the steel cage? Because I had not, so I found that entertaining.
Only when Mankind put Undertaker through it, or Undertaker put Mankind through it.
But not
they fell from the top,
like ripping to get the person back in. I've never seen that.
No, I've never seen that gimmick, which was great. I like Braun Strowman. There's a rumor going around that this was the McMahon's way of saying, "Hey, here's this guy we want to grab the brass ring, so we're gonna have Shane put him over at WrestleMania, make him look really strong." And as someone who knew him a little before he was a pro wrestler, I would like to see that happen.
Yeah.
Then you get Bad Bunny versus The Miz and John Morrison. Look, most of the time when a celebrity comes out, especially someone like Bad Bunny, they don't do a whole lot of wrestling. They do a lot of talking, and then a giant or a real professional wrestler does the wrestling. That is not true of Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, a man who has a very bright musical career in front of him, apparently also has a death wish and chose to actually do most of the wrestling against 2 of the greatest to ever wrestle as a tag team in Miz and Morrison. Those of you may know The Miz as Mike Mizano from the Real World and Real World Road Rules Challenge, and as that guy in all of those terrible WWE produced movies.
The Marine,
and Morrison,
part 7 or whatever, right?
Yeah, the Marine parts 13 through 34. And then Morrison had a great career outside of WWE in the Indies and in Lucha, but he's back at WWE. But they could carry anybody, and they certainly carried Bad Bunny and made him look really good. I wasn't as impressed with Damian Priest. I thought he was stiff. I thought he was mechanical. I don't know if he was trying to do a strong style thing, but he kind of did. But the fact that Bad Bunny got a legit pin makes me happy. That it wasn't some sort of no call or disqualified match or whatever. Like, it's a real pin. He actually did the work. He did some really good high flying spots. Made me very happy.
And that I know it's probably just like a tumbling exercise at the end of the day, but the move he did on Morrison outside the ring, where it was like a rolling DDT, I thought that sold really well. Like,
yeah, like I said,
uh,
I mean, John Morrison could make a stick figure look like a great wrestler.
yeah.
In fact, I've seen him do it. Not with stick figures, but when he was in Lucha, there was a woman wrestler who was notorious for hurting people. In fact, she's now blackballed from the industry. And Morrison did a match with her, and basically the premise is that someone had drugged her, and she was like out, like she was incapacitated, and so she wrestled the whole match as dead weight.
Huh.
And Morrison made it look like a great match. Like, so, I'm not saying that Bad Bunny's a bad wrestler. I'm saying he's not a wrestler at all, but he did a heck of a job.
No, and he was apparently very dedicated to like moving over there for 3 or 4 weeks and training every day, and it paid off. And also, he had by far the best ring entrance as well.
Yeah, coming in on a semi truck. Everybody else had to walk. He got to ride in on a semi truck. That's the thing I missed from this WrestleMania. What happened to the days when Triple H would come out and there'd be a legion of skeletons and he'd have to get burnt by dry ice and gone are the days. Now it's just, hey, here's a celebrity to sing this song you've never heard of, but it's this person's entry music.
Yeah. That was night 2. Well,
twice night 2.
Yeah,
but then the last match of the night was, in my humble opinion, maybe the second best women's match I've ever seen in my life.
First being what?
Sasha versus Bayley at NXT Brooklyn.
Okay, I'll check that out.
It was the 2-woman Iron Man match. They wrestled for an hour and a half, no holds barred, all over the Barclays Center. And it's the single greatest piece of women's wrestling to ever be done.
Wow, okay.
And that's like not just an opinion, that's like certifiable.
Yeah.
But this was a great match. I was really happy that Bianca Belair won. I was completely terrified by the fact that at one point she whipped Sasha with her hair and actually drew blood.
So I was wondering about that. Do you think that was some sort of like
that was a work
wrestler
that was
type
for real
in-screen makeup going on, or was that real?
No, that was legit.
But the sound effect was not real, correct? Because it sounded like an Indiana Jones.
I couldn't tell, like, watching it on my small screen here at work, but the blood was real.
I mean, it was crazy.
Just like the blood at the end of the Sheamus what's his nuts match.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, Bianca Belair is currently sporting like a 4 or 5 foot ponytail. So it's like a stylistic choice that's obviously used in the wrestling ring against her more times than is not. And her hair was like tied to the ropes and all kinds of stuff. So I thought the payoff of that was pretty great, though, because I've been watching her last few matches before this, and she hadn't been able to use her hair on the offensive yet. And that was a huge payoff, I think. So.
Right. The only thing about that match I didn't like was that it felt like a spelling test. It's the BOSS versus the BEST.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? Like, we know how to spell boss and best. Also, there are other letters than B in the alphabet.
Right.
Maybe try one.
And I'm really glad they didn't have anyone come and interfere, because it's unfortunate, but like all you hear her going into that match was like, oh, Becky Lynch posted a picture, so she must be gonna be there, or oh, Ronda Rousey.
Her husband was wrestling.
I'm glad they stayed away from the gimmicks of that match.
Right. I mean, her husband got spun around like 40 times, or her baby daddy, whatever he is. But,
right.
So I think it was good. I think overall night 1 was better than night 2. Night 1 was the redeemer of night 2, which gives the whole thing like a B- C for me.
Because they should have flipped it, right? I mean, the booking, shouldn't they have just made the better night 2?
I think they should have just made night 2 good.
Yeah. Okay.
WWE has this tendency to do too much. When Raw went to 3 hours, it got worse. They try to do too much, and it can't all be good. So now on Raw, you get hour-long Stephanie McMahon promos because they have to fill time.
Yeah, it's a long.
Do less.
I thought that today.
Yeah, they should do less and benefit more. And I know that's a Triple H thing that he says they should do that, but Vince isn't letting them. We'll see what happens when Vince keels over, because he's starting to look vaguely like the Crypt Keeper.
Oh. We'll see what happens with that. So what's the next big pay-per-view? Is it SummerSlam?
Fastlane.
Wait, but Fastlane happened already.
Not Fastlane. It's whatever the thing is after WrestleMania, which is like Vengeance or something.
Oh, okay, but before SummerSlam. Okay.
Yeah.
So like you said, they can,
I won't watch again until next year.
Yeah. Well.
I'll just read the dirt sheets like I did for the last year.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna keep up with it off and on. It's fun, but like I could, if they were done with half of the storylines we talked about, I'm fine. I don't need them going forward. But
Brainy and Jen, I really appreciate you guys sitting there and listening to that. Based on the looks on on your faces, neither of you had any knowledge of what we were talking about, or barely any interest.
Well, I had interest, but one thing I'll say is I was shocked to hear that now it's 2 days. It used to be 3 hours of WrestleMania.
It went to 2 days last year because so much of it was like pre-tape. So there was like one day that had a bunch of pre-tape, and then one day that was like legit live. And then this year, because it was the first event back in front of fans, I think they needed to milk the golden calf a little bit of people and do 2 days at Raymond James Stadium with a bunch of terrible CGI pirate crap. At one point, Randy Orton, who is the Viper, is coming out, and what is on your screen but a massive CGI Viper? And not like a good one. Like one that I could do up here on my screen in about 10 minutes. Like
basically like Castle Wolfenstein 3D type of.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then at the end of the first night, there was like a giant skeleton with a sword, and you're like, no, just stop. There's a reason that CNN did away with the freaking virtual map that was 3D for elections. You should do away with your terrible CGI department too. Maybe use it to pay better talent.
Right. Well, yeah, again, Brainy and Miss Jen, thank you for listening to that. If anything, you can take away the fact that I really like Sasha Banks and The Mandalorian, so,
She was great in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
She's a really good wrestler. She's not good as Snoop Dogg's sidekick. I will say that, but she's a really great wrestler. If you don't know, Snoop Dogg is her real life cousin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, thanks for doing that rundown. That was awesome. And yeah, we watched it. It's done, and then it'll happen again next year. And we'll see if they can tighten it up and have, 2 good nights. But I agree. Day 1, I thought was really good. Main event, phenomenal. Some really fun matches before that, and day 2 was just like, eh. Now, the triple threat could have saved it had it been like a crazy ending or storyline like I mentioned, but it wasn't anything near that. It was very cookie cutter. So therefore, if I was grading it, I would say like day 2 gets a C- and day 1 gets an A. So I don't know. But that's just me casually, as a casual fan, that's what I would say. So day 1 is superior to day 2, and then that's it. That's my TED Talk on WrestleMania.
Thank you for coming to Mark and I's TED Talk. Yeah, TED Talk or
But
aimless
thanks-
rant like a weird person on the internet about wrestling.
Yeah. But again, thank you, Brainy Miss Jen, for sitting through that. Thank you, Kyle, for doing the rundown, and thank you for listening and/or watching Nerd News Now, part of the Kingdom of Geekdom on Woodlands Online, sponsored by the Adventure Begins Comics and Games and Space Cadets Collection. Check out their other shows on Woodlands Online, like Music Cafe, The Adventure Begins Show, Woodlands House and Home, The Best You, Between the Trees, Business Talk, and much more. You can watch all these on Woodlands Online and on our partner station, KBQ THC 21 over there on your television. All these shows and more on Roku right now. Search and add Woodlands Online TV to your streaming lineup. And you can listen to the audio version of our podcast, Nerd News Now, on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you next time on Nerd News Now.